decreases a little bit, so it becomes less negative. But then it plateaus at a negative value as the electron concentration increases. That is despite the fact that the changes in the force constant matrix are similar to what you see in barium titanate. Okay, so the components related to titanium and these O-parallel displacements harden under doping, and so that does make the force constant for that distortion less negative. But the part of the distortion that's, or the driving force for the distortion, I should say, which is the calcium cation in this case, is not really affected much by the doping. In fact, it kind of softens a little bit. Okay, so the ferroelectric instability in calcium titanate is driven primarily by these calcium bonding preferences, and so that contribution is resistant to doping more than in barium titanate. Okay, so what's the difference between these two materials then? In barium titanate, doping stiffens the titanium component of the force constant matrix, so the crystal can't lower its energy through displacements of the titanium atoms. Since displacements of the titanium atoms are coupled to the barium and oxygen displacements, there's a reduced tendency for those atoms to displace, reducing the energy gain coming from that short-range contribution. And then charge transfer between the titanium D and oxygen P states leads to these anomalously large Born-affected charges, and a large dipole-dipole contribution to the titanium and O-parallel force constants. That interaction is screened by free charges. In calcium titanate, the polar distortion is driven by calcium mostly. Its Born-affected charge is pretty close to its formal charge. So the dipole-dipole contribution to the force constant of calcium is small. And the sort of local bonding contribution is much more important in calcium titanate than in barium titanate. So basically you have a small calcium cation that's sitting on this large 12-coordinate site, rattling around, and by undergoing a polar distortion, it can optimize its bonding environment a little bit. Not as much as with octahedral rotation distortions, so they win out in the end, but the polar distortion does help. Okay, so then to the second question, can the metal form in or undergo a phase transition to a polar space group? Yes. This second caveat, or this sort of second bit, I think is too restrictive because barium titanate has a very large dipole-dipole contribution to the force constants of the important atoms, and even there you can withstand some electrons floating around and still have a polar phase. And if you're not convinced by any of those arguments, you can look in the inorganic crystal structure database and find many examples of polar metals. These are all non-centrosymmetric superconductors. So in our paper we list about 70, but I just got bored looking for more. There are dozens more to be found. And so the last little bit, very quickly, is if you did want to find more polar metals, then where can you look? Well, the Ruckers group, actually, yeah, okay, I did want to say something about this first. So the polar phases of the materials that I've talked about so far, calcium titanate and lithium osmate, emerge through this so-called geometric mechanism. So this is a mechanism of ferroelectricity that doesn't rely on charge transfer. It's driven by ion size mismatch effects. So in the case of the materials that I've been talking about, some ion is too small for its coordination cage in a non-polar space group, and a polar distortion allows it to optimize its bonding environment. So that's also the case for this predicted polar metal, strontium calcium ruthenate. So in this paper, it's a very nice paper. The authors note that if you want a non-centrosymmetric metal, you have to have weak coupling between the electrons at the Fermi level and the electronic states that belong to the atoms that drive the polar distortion. So in all of the cases here, that seems to be true, that the atoms that drive the polar distortion are sitting down deep in the valence, very far away from the Fermi level. But that doesn't always have to be true, so this is where I wanted to talk about this work. So the Rutgers group recently wrote some very nice papers about this family of potential non-oxide semiconducting ferroelectrics that they describe as having a stuffed Wurtzite structure. So the Wurtzite framework is given by these green and red atoms, and then these stuffing atoms are in blue or in bold over here. So in these materials, they're more covalent than your typical perovskite. So that means that their Born-affected charges are smaller and their electronic polarizabilities are larger. Both of those things act to reduce the dipole-dipole contribution to the force constants. And in some of these materials, which they call hyperferroelectrics, a metal insulator transition accompanies the polar distortion, suggesting that there is some kind of coupling between the states that drive the polar distortion and the electronic structure of the Fermi level. Okay, so Albina is standing up and looking scary and threatening. So I'll just leave my summary up there. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
I'm not convinced about your insistence on the fact that the Born-affected charges contribute to the force constant, because they contribute only for longitudinal phonons, and here in the transition you are looking for zero field transition. That is a transverse phonon where the Born-affected charge has no effect on that energy. So for trivial materials like sodium chloride, Born-affected charges disappear. In this material there is a further phenomenon which could play a role, but I don't know whether it will be positive or negative. It's the fact which has been demonstrated by David long ago and some co-workers that the eigenvectors of the longitudinal end of a transverse mode are completely different in perovskite. That's the only thing. But if you simply say the electric charge, it's right, the Born-affected charges contribute, but only contribute to longitudinal. So they contribute to the non-analytic part of the dynamical matrix, but instead, if you're looking for a transition in zero field, structural transition, definitely the Born-affected charge do not copy to any field.
Okay, but it wouldn't be zero. If you had free carriers around, then it wouldn't be zero. No, then you don't have.
Well, but first of all, you're saying even before adding carriers, you're saying the effect is dominated by the Z star. This is true only for longitudinal phonons, but the ones which are responsible for the transition are the transverse ones.
Yeah. Okay.
If I can just comment on this, since this has been a conversation that's probably gone on for 10 or 20 years. I think part of the confusion depends on what you start from as your reference. So if you start from the transverse force constant matrix, then of course it's true what you said. If instead you start from the longitudinal, you can have a different point of view where you start from the longitudinal force constant matrix, and then you calculate the transverse one by subtracting off terms involving the Z stars. Then you convince yourself that it's the Z stars that make the instability. So it sort of depends upon what frame reference you start with. So I never.
No, this is the answer I was looking for, in the sense that in a situation like this, where the eigenvectors are very different, you can have such an effect. Of course, if the eigenvectors are the same, this effect does not exist.
Thanks, nice talk. I have been attracted by your first rigorous statement about impossibility of having ferroelectric material with so I'm just thinking about material which would be like superlattice of metallic and ferroelectric materials, so like multi-layer capacitor. You can switch the polarization when you put the electric field perpendicular to the layers, but of course when you would put your contacts on the sides, it would behave as a metal because you would have metallic conductivity along the electrodes. So I wonder if your statement you really take into account possibility that maybe you may have ferroelectric material which have conduction in the direction perpendicular to the polarization. Would it be possible?
So, okay. There are, yeah, so I agree with you that depending on which, if the conduction is not in 3D, that if you're in some lower dimension, then yeah, depending on which way you apply the electric field, then yeah, you can have, yes, you can have switching. I divided, I kind of split the answer up, or I split the question up into those two different sort of sub-questions, because in this whole sort of polar metal discussion, I thought that different things were being mixed up. That the possibility of switching and sort of kind of metal support electric fields and that sort of stuff was being mixed up with kind of metal form in a polar space group. So that's why I kind of addressed those two things separately. But yeah, I agree with what you said.
One may have spontaneous polarization and still stays in the ferroelectric.
If you're in, yeah, along certain directions. Yeah.
You disagree?
Yeah.
Well, yeah, okay, so maybe I'm adding more kind of semantic questions, but I don't know how you define matter, right? So,
I've
you know,
had long
my
discussions.
understanding is it is just enough for liquids, right? Enough for screening of your polarization charge. You call that as a matter. Then, you know, for example, like semi-matter is a beautiful, perfect matter according to that definition, right? So that's fine. I mean, that's not really my question. My question is this. So this kind of highly leaky, you know, polar materials, you know, very likely with electric field and low temperature, you cannot switch polarization. I would agree on that. On the other hand, if there is a phase transition, across this phase transition upon cooling, by applying even tiny voltage, tiny electric current, you may be able to, you know, kind of preferred polarization direction. I think that's enough. I call that as a ferroelectric or switching. Do you agree on this? And is there any system actually works like that?
I don't know if there's any system that works like that. Just to your first point, yes. So I'm aware that you can come up with various definitions and think about the metal in various ways. The point of these sort of controlled and somewhat artificial computer experiments that we did, so as soon as you, in a standard DFT calculation, in the absence of any kind of Hubbard U or anything, then you have a Fermi liquid. And so for us, it didn't really matter whether it was sort of semiconductor or semi-metal or just, we were trying to look at sort of the very basic question is if you have charge carriers around, then how does the polar distortion behave? So I'm not saying that so like Hiri's question was if along a certain direction, if it's conducting, then we can switch along other directions, that's fine. It was mostly, I wanted to address this thing of polar metals being very rare and the unit cell level dipole picture, which I don't think is, as David and Raffaele have shown.
Let me add a little bit about this. There is this so-called topological insulator community. They work on a lot of semi-metals, and quite a few of those compounds undergoes non-polar to polar transition, and they are semi-metal. So in terms of conductivity, it's a beautiful metal, and there are a number of examples.
Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah, that's fine. So they do belong to the kind of ferroelectric metal you're talking about. So
have they been switched?
No.
Okay, so then they're polar metals, but that's fine. I don't have anything against non-polar to polar phase transitions in metals. I don't think there's anything special or anything, nothing special about that.
Okay, so we agree on that.
Yeah.
Good.
Let's thank Nicole for a very engaging talk, and you guys can